it's because you understand sometimes the agency itself is the real cause of a lot of the problems that people deal with. And we're not really for just, imposing greater burdens on business. So the permitting is always a huge challenge, and it is wherever we go. In terms of long-term with the agency itself, within agencies, there tend to be created over years a culture and what I call a bureaucratic stasis, meaning it just won't move. And no matter who the director is, it won't move. People know they can outweight you, and they know they can outweight legislators too, for that matter. And there's been a high turnover in directors in the department. Do you have an idea as you come in now, assuming these duties yourself, that what's caused that high turnover in directors, and is any part of it resulted to the very difficult agency you're dealing with, meaning very resistant to change, or any of your new policies that they try to undermine? Is there a problem within the agency in that respect?
That's a very perceptive question, actually.
Well, don't be timid about it, and I'll tell you why. You know, if they don't like you, then that's just the way it is. Sometimes they're not going to like your comfortable culture changed. But if there is a strong leader at the helm, that can quickly change to enthusiasm as they find that actually their own circumstance has improved, working within an agency that's troubled. And soon they're not working in an agency that's troubled anymore. They're working with an agency that's on the ascent and being respected again. And that's just a thought. So don't be timid to saying, well, we've kind of had some problems and we're going to work on them.
Well, we certainly have had problems. Yesterday, speaking with the Assembly, I was asked whether we were whether we were going to kill ourselves with perfection, and I said I didn't think we were in any danger of being accused of being perfect anytime soon. I will say, going through 7 directors in 10 years before me is hard on any group of people. And I certainly will not claim that everybody likes me in the department. But I will tell you also that I came in expecting much worse than I found. And people don't expect me to say that because the department certainly has a very poor reputation right now. But uniformly, and I have been out to all 8 of our regional offices, several of them more than once. And when I'm out there, I meet not just with the management in the office, but I meet with the actual staff. I sit down and talk with them. They ask me questions. And what I am finding is a group of people who have a very deep commitment to their jobs and want to do a good job. But they're not really sure what that means right now. And my job is to help them see my vision for the excellence of our department. They have been so far very receptive. And I'm not going to say that that's 100% of the staff. For sure, there are people who are not comfortable with change. But I have been pleasantly surprised by the number of staff at all levels of the organization who have reached out to me and said, we are so happy to have you here. We are so happy to have this kind of leadership. And I don't mean any disrespect to my predecessors. I've started meeting with them. I've met with some of them already. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, and I'm trying to learn from what they did, what they tried to do, what worked and what didn't work from their perspective. But I'm very optimistic about this department. I see, given the depth of knowledge and commitment and professionalism I've encountered, there is no reason why this department will not be as respected as the Air Resources Board or other boards or departments under Cal EPA, and I expect to accomplish that.
Well, congratulations. You know, sometimes I would use the more bucolic from the farm term that proverbial log upside the head of the mule. Sometimes that's what it takes, and today, for your agency, that's kind of the message. But it's respectfully, though, and thoughtfully delivered, and not in an accusatory manner, but we're trying to work with you, and that's what the committee wants to see happen, and we're going to try to set the parameters in our budget decision to ensure that happens as we proceed. Last question. To what degree is your agency general fund dependent now? I know you've got a lot of fees and fines, et cetera, income, but do you have a rough 10%, 20%, 50%?
I'm sorry, I'm looking for the right tab in my binder here. Just a moment. Anticipation, BCPs.
Well, you don't need to
I
probe around too much, but
it would... not being prepared for that question, Senator. I know I have it, and I have it organized so that I get to that.
No, don't trouble with it. Just, is it a substantial percent or just a little tiny bit, mostly fee-funded fines? That's enough for now. We can dig that up later.
I do apologize. I should have that answer right at the forefront of my head, and I do not, but I will have it for you in a few minutes.
Oh, no. You can get that to us after the hearing, okay? The point is, you're some general fund funded and some other funded, correct?
Yes, and I actually do have it here now. And again, I apologize. It was a very late night. So we have about $86 million of our revenue comes from special taxes and fees. $30 million comes from federal grants. 27 is general fund, and $2 million is fines. And in the tan folder that we gave to you on the side reserved for the budget discussion, there are some pie charts that break that out, so you can look at both the breakdown of the revenues as well as the breakdown of the expenditures.
Okay. The last, I just would observe that I'm not a big fan of overburdening businesses of California and industry with excessive fees to fund the agencies of government. And there is a trend of trying to wean agencies off of the general fund and impose them more on businesses and individual citizens, just like owners of cars. And then free up that general fund money not to balance the budget or pay off debts, but to pay for big new programs that only exacerbate our long-term problems. So I'm sensitive to that within agencies. What are you doing with your fees and fines? So as we proceed, I'm going to want to take a look at that, where you folks have been in terms of your fee-fine structures and where you're headed with them, okay?
I appreciate that, and I understand, Senator, that I not only am charged with ensuring that the department is effective in protecting public health and the environment, but that it is a good steward of the dollars we have awarded to us by you, and I promise you I take that very seriously.
Thank you for your testimony today. I appreciate it. I appreciate the difficulty, but you've handled it very well.
Senator Leno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me join Senator Nielsen in recognizing the enormous challenge you stepped into, clearly, or apparently with your eyes wide open. And your presentation has been very comprehensive. I have great respect for your immediate predecessor, Debbie Raphael, who I think began to create a pathway for reform within the department, and that is to your benefit.
Yes.
So it was a great loss when she left. We have high hopes for you. Do I understand correctly that the department was negotiating independently with the United States DOJ as they reached their resolution with Exide, apparently simultaneously to your resolution with Exide? And the reason I ask is, and I know only about what I've read in the paper this morning with regard to what happened last night or what was announced last night, but that the Department of Justice used as leverage against Exide the threat of prosecution. And so some tens of millions of dollars have been assured for purposes of cleanup. And they will not be liable any longer with the United States Department of Justice. Is that not the case here? They still are liable with regards to concerns you have? And if not so, what leverage did you have to get what we have yet to really fully understand you got from them?
So that's, you are quite correct. It's a confusing situation. It's an excellent question. So let me try to lay it out for you as clearly as I can. We began negotiating with Exide, or negotiating isn't really the right word. We began working with Exide to outline what the closure scenario would look like and how it would be funded once we communicated to them that they were not going to be getting a permit. And that process began several weeks ago. In a parallel track, the U.S. Attorney was also working to resolve their complaint against Exide. We learned about their original inquiry into Exide's activities when we assisted them by providing facts from our investigation. So we knew there was an investigation going on, and this started some time ago, but we were not, the way criminal investigations work at the federal level, they were not sharing with us the details of their investigation. They were requesting information from us, and we were supporting their investigation. We did not negotiate with them on their resolution of their complaint against Exide. We learned last week, late last week, that they were negotiating an agreement with Exide to resolve those criminal violations. And we learned last night that they had reached resolution. It happened in a parallel process with our effort, and it has the happy effect of adding a federal enforcement component to the cleanup order that we have negotiated with Exide. So what the U.S. DOJ did is it required Exide to comply with our order, and it accelerated payments of the residential cleanup fund as part of the resolution of their complaint. But Exide's not off the hook with them completely. For 10 years, they will continue to oversee this, and if Exide violates our order, they have stipulated to criminal conduct in that order with the feds that will then result in some criminal convictions for the company. So this is a very strong hammer in place that ensures that the order we have with Exide for the cleanup of the community will be implemented and it will be funded.
So in effect, we were the beneficiary of this parallel effort with the U.S. Attorney, because if at the time we communicated to Exide that their permit was going to be denied, they have no other business in California, they could have left the state and left us holding the bag, right? I mean, we didn't really have leverage ourselves.
Well, in part you're correct, and in part not so. When we told Exide they were not going to get a permit, that triggers having to close the facility. The way they were nominally set up to enter that closure process would have pushed them into liquidation. They wanted to avoid liquidation. The state has some interest in avoiding that liquidation as well, because as you correctly pointed out, if Exide liquidates, the money to conduct the cleanup is not assured at all. We would then be working with the funds we already have in place because of the 2014 order. So we already have $13 million for the closure of the site, and we have already $3 million for the cleanup of the residential offsite properties. But the future payments would have been very uncertain at best. We would have been using every tool at our disposal that the law provides for us to recover those costs, but it would not have been easy. So we had some interest to try to find a path forward for closure of the facility that would be funded and would not leave the state of California and its residents holding the bag. So that was why we entered into those negotiations. We knew they did not want to liquidate, and we worked out with them a plan that we felt would ensure that the cleanup was conducted the closure was conducted properly, the cleanup occurred, and that the people are protected, and that they pay for it. Those were our objectives, and we did that. At either point in this process, the U.S. DOJ and the department could have pushed Exide into liquidation. We separately worked so that that would not happen.
Will they remain legally liable here in California, independent of the
Yes,
DOJ?
yes, they will.
And then just back to more systemic concerns. With the benefit of hindsight, are there one or two or three major lessons that we can learn from the Exide debacle so that other communities may not have to suffer over decades as the ones that are currently?
Yes.
There's a little too, I'm glad to hear that. Or is it
Yes.
need a little more time to benefit from that?
There are certainly lessons to be learned. In reviewing the enforcement history at the site, I observed that in the first, well, I'm not sure how many years it is now. I think it's 16 years from when Exide took control of the site up until about 2013. The department was out there investigating on average once a year, but that's on average. From 2013 to 2014, in that 2-year period, the department stepped up its game quite a bit and was out there on average once a month. In 2015, I have directed my staff to be there every day that work is being done at that site, to make sure that they are operating in compliance. I don't come out of the hazardous waste world, I come out of the air quality world, but I've been a regulator for nearly 25 years. My approach to regulation is to signal early what we want people to do, what the right thing to do is, and to provide incentives to do it. If that's not enough, then we need regulations. We adopt regulations, they are clear, and everyone knows what they have to do to comply and to demonstrate they're in compliance. And then we make sure they do. So in my experience, when I had sent inspectors out to a site and they had conducted an investigation and found non-compliance, we were back again soon to make sure that the non-compliance was dealt with. And we stepped up our visits to make sure it stayed that way until we were confident they were on the right track again. And I expect that that's how we're going to be approaching things going forward in the department now. And Elise Rothschild, who is our new deputy director of our hazardous materials program, comes out of a strong background of that kind of enforcement. We certainly work with businesses to help them comply, to make sure they understand what they have to do, and to be fair in how we apply our laws and our regulations. But we will make sure that the people who don't operate in compliance get the appropriate and effective response in an enforcement posture from us, not only so that they return to compliance and operate in compliance going forward, but so that they don't have an unfair advantage over their competitors who have failed to do the same.
So basic things, right?
Basic things.
Pay attention, be present, communicate your intent.
Absolutely.
And then, this is all rather daunting. Is there not a way to streamline this process?
I hope so, Senator. I have been here for 3 months now. I will tell you that even with the problems that the department has in processing permits, we beat the national average.
Is that,
For RCRA permits, we do, even without the enhancements we have underway.
my last question was going to be, are there some best practices that we could learn from other states? You're saying we're doing better than other states.
We are doing better than average, but we are also looking at best practices. Part of what the evaluation that was done in 2012 provided for us was a signal on what some of those best practices would be. And then, as part of our permit enhancement process, this comprehensive evaluation we've been doing is further identifying specifically the changes we need to make so that we are as efficient and as effective as we can be with the resources we have.
Thank you, Director Lee, and good luck.
Before we close out the hearing, we need to have public comment. If there is anyone who wishes to make public comment, please come forward. And while that's happening, I wanted to say on behalf of Senator Pavley, who is a member of the Budget Subcommittee, who has a long interest in the department and is not able to be with us today, gave me a couple questions that I'd just like to, one of which you've answered in your materials, but the other one not. Senator Pavley wanted to get real data on enforcement and staffing units at DTSC, which in your report that you gave us on page 20 is pretty comprehensive, including a summary of major enforcement successes over the past few years, and she wanted to see real data. So I'll certainly point this out to her staff and to share with her. And the question that she had has to do with employees and recruitment efforts. She mentions the fact that, in her view, much of the public unhappiness with the department comes in large measure from the environmental justice, appropriately from the environmental justice communities. And the question is whether what kind of recruitment is going on, and she'd like a breakdown of employees in this regard. So maybe you'd like to speak to that briefly or provide a report to her and to the committee.
Well, I appreciate her sending her her questions in response to the question about environmental justice recruitment. We have created the Assistant Director for Environmental Justice, and that position is under active recruitment right now by the administration. It's an appointee, but we are assisting in that. We have interviewed a number of good candidates. We have a few more we need to interview and hope to make a recommendation to the administration soon on that for their consideration. This is a very important position for us, and we want to make sure we have the right person in it. So that is actively underway. I'm not quite sure I understand the remainder of her question. We do have open positions. We are recruiting for them. I have a personal and deep commitment to environmental justice. It's been a large part of the work I've done over the years, and I have good relations with many of the advocates within the environmental justice community. So I have been meeting with them and with other community representatives to get input on the department. They also give me input on the kinds of people they think we need to have on staff, and I take that under consideration.
There was an excellent letter that was submitted to you on October the 1st, 2014, from the Environmental Justice Coalition, 2, 3, 4 pages long, that is really quite comprehensive. So I'm sure you've seen it and are acting accordingly. No one for public comment? Oh, well, I said come forward. I meant it while we were talking.
Right here.
Come, right here.
While they're coming up, Madam Chair, if I might, on the subject of that letter from the Environmental Justice Coalition, we have arranged to do a statewide video conference with them in a couple of weeks. I think it might even be next week now. And then I'm doing a toxics tour with the People's Senate the following weekend.
Thank you. Welcome. Who's first?
Good afternoon or good morning. I've lost track. My name is Gladys Limon. I'm a staff attorney with Communities for a Better Environment, a statewide environmental justice organization. Hundreds of our members live in the surrounding communities affected by Exide's egregious contamination. Actually, before I go on, can you please let me know how much time I have?
I would say about 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll hurry. So after many years of community outcry and suffering from severe health burdens, it was announced yesterday, as we all know, that the facility will finally shut down. And this is due only to the U.S. Attorney's Office's efforts. Unfortunately, we cannot thank the Department of Toxic Substances Control for this overdue event. Our members have long held that Exide's conduct in spewing dangerous levels of toxics over their heads has been nothing short of criminal. We therefore have been astonished at the DTSC's refusal to deny the pending permit application in light of the egregious history of chronic violations of environmental laws. It's equally astonishing to hear the announcement that the department has now denied the permit. I cannot help but feel indignified at such an announcement, as this is the very result that our communities have implored it to make for decades, yet conveniently awaited until after the U.S. Attorney's Office announced the shutdown. It strains credulity to believe that this is a result of a thoughtful, proper process rather than another political calculation. The decision to deny permit is, of course, governed by a legal process, not by a political one in which the DTSC has engaged. We have a 12-page letter that we'd like to submit that is just a summary of the troubling and proper process through which the department has acted on Exide's facility permit. It has failed to abide both by the letter and the spirit of the law. We urge you to review this letter, as it will inform you regarding why and how the department is defunct. It seems that in addition to failing to abide by its own regulations and failing to enforce the law, which it is mandated to do, it also has an identity crisis. It doesn't know who and what it serves, the people and the law.
Do you have a copy of that letter?
Yes, I do.
Leave it with the sergeant.
Yeah. We respectfully request a full investigation into the department's handling of the Exide matter in order to determine how the state can prevent such circumstances from ever happening again. I want to respond to a couple of the comments that were made. Thank you very much. One, as to the bankruptcy process, it's absolutely improper to prop up the continued operation of a serial violator, to assist it, provide state assistance through reorganization when and if it means placing affected communities in continued jeopardy. California's enforcement authority includes its power to seek cleanup costs and remains despite any pending bankruptcy of any facility. The department improperly compromised in a settlement agreement the necessary financial assurances and corrective action plans required for a sufficient full remediation. It also had the legal authority over many years and could have and should have denied this permit long ago. Its failure to do so endangered the public and also wasted public resources. The Department of Toxic Substance Control is just as accountable and liable for the deplorable situation that hundreds, if not thousands, of community members have had to endure. The department, ironically, has a mandate to prioritize environmental justice communities, just as Southeast and East LA communities. But unfortunately, the only environmental justice concerns or factors that it has undergone is permitting hazardous waste facilities in such communities.
I will ask you to sum up.
Again, we implore full investigation of the department. What happened in the matter of Exide is not limited to Exide. There are reckless and very negligent decisions that were made over the years, as are detailed in our letter. And the department failed to not only protect the public, but also it itself violated procedural regulations.